The US spends more per student than almost any country, yet its education system ranks at the bottom. Now, in a shocking twist, the entire Department of Education has been shut down. Just like that. Elon Musk confirmed it with one chilling statement. No such department exists. What led to this stunning move? Let's dive in. But before diving into the chaos unfolding in Washington, let's go back to the moment everything changed. It was a simple response, just a few words, but those words sent ripples through the country. Congressman Maxwell Frost made a post about the Department of Education, likely expecting it to be just another tweet in the endless stream of political debate. But then, Musk replied, "No such department exists in the federal government." That was it. Just hours before, Donald Trump had made a bold declaration. If he returned to the White House, he vowed, the Department of Education would be dismantled and control of schools would be handed back to the states. It was a promise he had made before, but this time, something was different. Elon Musk had been ordered to look into the department, and now, without warning, it seemed to be gone. The connection between Trump's words and Musk's confirmation was impossible to ignore. The public was left in confusion, trying to process whether this was a long overdue reform or a reckless power move. And then, the protests started. Furious Democratic lawmakers rushed to the Department of Education's headquarters, demanding entry. But when they arrived, something was off. The doors were locked. Security was standing guard. Not just regular security, Homeland Security officers. Video clips show lawmakers arguing with officials, insisting they had the right to enter. "We fund this department," one representative shouted. But the response was the same each time. Nobody was getting in. It was as if the department had vanished overnight, leaving only a sealed building and a mountain of unanswered questions. So, why did this happen? And more importantly, what happens now? The Department of Education had been a target of criticism for years. Billions of dollars were pumped into the system, yet America's education ranking remained embarrassingly low. The US spends more money per student than almost any other country, yet students continue to fall behind in math, science, and reading. Countries like China and Finland are producing the next generation of engineers and innovators, while American schools struggle with basic literacy rates. It was a system that many saw as bloated, inefficient, and failing its students. But does that mean shutting it down was the right move? For decades, politicians have debated whether education should be controlled at the federal or state level. The argument for federal oversight was that it ensured all students, regardless of where they lived, had access to quality education. But critics argued that federal policies were out of touch, imposing one-size-fits-all mandates that didn't work for every community. Trump believed the solution was simple: give the power back to the states. He claimed that without federal interference, schools would be free to innovate, improving education through competition. And now, with the department gone, that vision is becoming a reality. But here's where things get complicated. The Department of Education wasn't just a symbolic entity, it managed $1.6 trillion in student loans. It oversaw funding for special education programs, ensured schools meet federal standards, and helped struggling districts keep their doors open. Without it, who takes over these responsibilities? No one seems to have a clear answer. Some say states will absorb these duties, but many states are already struggling financially. Others worry that without federal oversight, essential programs, especially for low-income and special needs students, could be slashed. Funding gaps could widen, leaving already underfunded schools in crisis. Programs that millions of families rely on, like free lunch programs, after-school support, and disability accommodations, could suddenly be in jeopardy. The ripple effects would go beyond just education, potentially straining local governments that now have to pick up the slack. And with no clear structure in place, the transition could be chaotic, leaving students caught in the middle of an unprecedented shift. And then there's the student loan crisis. Millions of Americans have federal student loans, and now the department that managed them no longer exists. Does that mean payments are paused? Will loans be forgiven? Or will a new agency step in? No one knows. The silence from the government has only fueled speculation. People are left waiting, uncertain about what happens next. Borrowers who were already struggling now face even more uncertainty, unsure if they should continue making payments or brace for unexpected changes. Loan servicers are in limbo, with no clear directives on how to handle repayments or interest accrual. Some fear that without federal oversight, predatory lenders could step in, exploiting desperate borrowers with high-interest refinancing schemes. Universities, too, are left questioning how future financial aid will be distributed, potentially leaving thousands of students without access to the funding they were promised. And as frustration builds, the lack of transparency only adds to the growing sense of chaos. Elon Musk's role in all of this raises even more questions. Why was a billionaire tech mogul put in charge of investigating a government department? Trump himself admitted he personally asked Musk to dig into the Department of Education, trusting him to uncover inefficiencies. That alone is significant. Musk has disrupted industries before: space travel, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, but now he is influencing major government decisions. Was this another example of him stepping in to fix a broken system? Or was there something bigger happening behind the scenes? Public reactions have been anything but unified. Some parents are celebrating, seeing this as a long overdue victory. Without federal mandates, they believe schools can finally focus on real education: math, science, history, without political agendas getting in the way. They argue that local communities, not Washington bureaucrats, should decide what's best for their children. Others, however, are terrified. They worry that without federal regulations, some states will cut education funding, leading to a system where only wealthy districts thrive while poorer ones collapse. The Department of Education had a massive budget, billions of dollars every year. With it gone, where does that money go? If states are taking control, will they get direct funding? Some fear that without federal dollars, school funding will fall on local taxpayers, leading to higher property taxes and increased financial strain. Others argue that cutting out federal bureaucracy means more money will actually reach classrooms instead of being lost in administrative costs. But without a clear distribution plan, schools could be left waiting for crucial funds, forcing them to make immediate budget cuts. Teachers' salaries, school maintenance, and essential student services could all be affected as states scramble to adjust. Wealthier districts might absorb the change more easily, but poorer communities could struggle, deepening the already stark divide in education quality. If funding delays or mismanagement occur, the consequences could be felt for years, impacting everything from teacher retention to student performance. And if states are left to compete for limited resources, the fight for fair funding could become more political than ever. The debate over education reform isn't new, but this move is unlike anything seen before. For now, one thing is certain: American education is entering a new era. Whether this decision leads to a brighter future or a catastrophic failure remains to be seen. But one thing is for sure: this conversation is far from over. Was this a bold step toward fixing a broken education system, or a disastrous move that could leave millions struggling? With the Department of Education gone, the future of schools, student loans, and federal funding is now uncertain. Do you see this as progress or chaos? Share your thoughts in the comments below.